is, up to what, 1958 or whatever it is, when white man gentrified Bigfoot, the Bigfoot myth, or the modern Bigfoot myth, as a lot of people know it, unfortunately now today, is, like you said, the wild man or the hairy man, or the myths of the Hoopa Indians and the other Indians. The I don't want to sound ignorant here, but I probably will come off that way. But it's not the same thing. It's kind of where there's we've taken it, and I think we've made a kind of over embellished the current modern Bigfoot myth as compared to the Indian tales of long ago.
Yeah, and it's changed with time, and if you look at the old accounts, like pick up a good book like the Historical Bigfoot, that's what it's called. That book is like 1,000 pages long now. he redid it, and these are all the old accounts, pretty much what you would call pre-internet, pre-John Green, before the modern times of discovery, so-called Bigfoot culture. And if you look at these old stories, they're endless. A lot of them, of course, being fairly ludicrous, humorous stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were newspaper articles that would spread from one newspaper to the other, and get more and more crazy as they went, right? Because the editors are trying to sell newspapers, just like these hucksters on television are these days trying to sell you their fake reality TV.
Right.
That horrible new TV show that just. Yeah. My point without the rambling was
no, go on. We got plenty of time.
Back then, they didn't really know what to call it. As you've surely seen, like every tribal group culture had its own names for these things, or for the legend, and they had versions of it that were different from each other. They weren't all the same. They're not all the same people. They had different languages. They had different times they migrated around the country, different waves of people coming from different parts of the other world, the old world. So they may have shared these things. Like around here, you have the Karuks, the Yuroks, and the Hoopa, the three main tribes out here in the mountains, and they all share the similar view of Bigfoot. They've all kind of intermarried, shared, especially when the populations might have gotten down low. You had to look outside your family for a mate, right? So they'd have ritual ceremonies, and people would meet each other that way. But so the culture spread to each other. They still have different names for it. They still have different versions of it. If you get to know anybody who practices the traditional cultures more than the popular culture, you'll get right down to it. That Bigfoot is not what you see on TV. It's something different. It can take us, all this woo stuff, right? The stuff that's been co-opted by the new age white people. Now, a lot of it comes from Native American culture, but what they do is they deracinate it. They pull it up out of the ground from its roots, and they stick these things into the new age model, and they try to make it all work for them, not realizing that they've left behind the culture that supported that thing to grow and for it to make sense. So you've got a bunch of modern white people faking it, pretending to have these mystical experiences in this culture, but actually they're really far distant from it. Anyway, the thing is, they didn't know what to call this, so you had all these native names, and then you had all these regional names like booger and whatnot that you still hear today, wood booger and squatch and Sasquatch and Bigfoot and of course the more traditional ones. It could go on forever, blending these with other creatures like the Wendigo and whatnot. The monsters that you had roaming around. Whether they're all the same beast or not is a good question.